single dad veteran took in 15 Hells Angels. During a storm, the next morning shocked, the town lightning tore the night in half. 15 Harleys rolled through the downpour like thunder given steel and breath. Inside an old repair shop, a Marine's dog tag caught the flash. Ethan Cole, as he pulled his daughter closer and made a decision that would rewrite a town's soul. He opened the door. "You look cold. Come in." Before we continue, if this story moves you, subscribe to Voices of Darkness, tap like, and share with your biker family. Help us reach 1,000 subscribers. If you love the Hells Angels Brotherhood, prove it now. The wind hit Redstone like a blunt instrument, shoving rain sideways until Main Street became a slick river of taillights and trash can lids. In the skeletal glow of a failing street lamp, Ethan Cole cranked down the steel shutters on his shop windows. The hinges screamed. So did the sky. "Dad, I'm scared," Lily said. 9 years old, chin tucked into the frayed collar of his old field jacket that swallowed her whole. She clutched the one-eared rabbit as if it were a life raft. "We've been through worse," he said, crouching to meet her eyes. He'd learned in country Kandahar Ramani that fear is a wall you walk through in smaller steps. He thumbed away a strand of wet hair stuck to her cheek. "We stay together. That's the whole plan." The heater had died months ago. Until money followed mercy, the only warmth was the orange roar in the old steel drum Ethan used as a barrel fire. Scrap wood, a little motor oil, and a ring of mismatched sockets radiated shadows along pegboards and neat rows of wrenches. The Marine in him kept the order. The father in him fed the flame. Thunder answered the valley like artillery. Ethan didn't flinch, but something inside him braced. Memory hung smoke-thick. Convoys, checkpoints, the color of sand at pre-dawn. He focused on the drum's breathing flame and on Lily's. Small hands splayed to it. Then, another sound. Lower, meatier. A rumbling that entered the body before the ear Harleys. He slid 2 fingers under the shutter's lip and lifted a slit of night. Chrome glinted in the rain. 15 bikes in tight formation, water sheeting off leather vests and bowing flags. The lead rider parked at the curb and swung a long leg down. A door slammed across the street. Mrs. Patterson, banker's wife, rushed her porch. "Dear God," she cried. "It's the Hells Angels." Windows thumped shut like held breaths. Phones lit up palms. Somewhere a bolt slid on a shotgun. Ethan's cell buzzed. "Sheriff Tom Brennan, stay inside. Lock up." "I'm on my way." Ethan's thumb hovered, then fell away. He watched the men huddle against the rain. One limped. Another cradled an arm. None of them postured. They were just cold. Lily appeared at his elbow. "Are they bad men?" He looked at his dog tag, silent metal, heavy with vows. Honor before fear, his first sergeant had hammered into marrow. It was the only compass that never spun. "They're people caught in a storm," he said. He pulled the deadbolt, swung the door wide, and let the rain bite his face. "You look cold," he called. "Come in," the bikes went quiet. The storm didn't. A tall man with a storm-gray beard and surgical scars down his forearms stepped forward. Eyes like spent casings, emptied many times, still willing to hold fire. "You serious?" he asked. "Dead serious." A long beat. The man nodded. "Ryder Grant," he said. Then he jerked his chin at the others. Inside, 15 wet giants filed into the small heat like men used to doorways narrowing around them. Drips ticked the concrete. Lily pressed into Ethan's leg until his palm found her shoulder and settled it. "Soup," Ethan said. "Lily, the big pot Grandma sent?" She vanished to the back, returned with both hands on a dented stock pot. Ethan set it on the bench near the fire, found bowls, chipped mugs, even a measuring cup that would have to do. He ladled first for the limper, then the man guarding his arm, then all the rest. A murmur passed like grace. "Thank you, thank you, thank you." Outside, a blue-white strobe cut the rain. The sheriff had arrived. Fear and rumor pressed close as wet glass. Ryder set down his bowl. "We can bounce," he said, voice low. Ethan shook his head. "Finish your soup." Sheriff Brennan pounded a knuckle on the frame. Ethan stepped through the crack into the teeth of the storm. "What the hell are you doing?" Brennan snapped, slicker hood shining under his cruiser's bar lights. "Seeing men in trouble and feeding them," Ethan said. "They're Hell's Angels. They're human. They're criminals." Brennan's voice dropped. "Look, I know you've got a soft spot for vets, but who said anything about soft?" Ethan's smile was small and tired. "I've seen harder days than this." The town is freaking out, Ethan. Old man Harrison's got a 12 gauge on his couch. Mrs. Patterson called the bank manager from the closet. Send them on their way. Roads are lakes. Lines are down. You want their blood on your report? Ryder's voice floated through. Let it go, brother. We'll ride. Not on my watch, Ethan said without looking back. He told Brennan about Romani. 2 days pinned. A local man who opened a door and changed the cost of the night. Because you are far from home and no man should die alone. Ryder stepped into the rain beside them, face unreadable, rain painting rivers down his beard. He looked from Ethan to Brennan to the shivering knots of townsfolk across the street. All right, he said finally. We stay, no problems. You have my word. Your word worth something in that vest? Brennan asked. Ryder's jaw flexed. He reached into the leather and produced a battered ID, held it under the strobe. Grant, RSGT USMC. The sheriff's mouth thinned. He nodded once. He stayed. 15 men ringed the barrel fire, hands splayed, boots steaming. The shop smelled like rain and oil and soup and the faint copper of weathered steel. Lily moved between them in shy circuits, her small dignity redistributing bread like a nurse in a field hospital. Most of us served, Ryder said, answering the question Ethan hadn't asked aloud. 2 tours Fallujah, 3 Helmand. He tapped the surgical seam on his forearm. Couple souvenirs. 2nd Battalion, 7th Marines, Ethan said. 2nd, 1st, Ryder returned. Their hands were already shaking, the old language of grip and pressure. Jack, the man with the prosthetic, had been a corpsman. He'd lost the leg after he'd crawled into a minefield on his belly, not out of it. Marcus had been ranger. Dale carried Bronze Star quiet. One by one, the stories dropped into the fire's glow and rose again as steam, as understanding. People see the cut and think monster, Ryder said, touching his patch. We ride under the name, but we ain't the California chapter. Support club, brotherhood, work. Stay moving or the night catches up. Lily, curled against Ethan, stirred. Her voice was small but made of spine. My dad has nightmares too, she said. The shop went still. What do you do when he has them? Ryder asked carefully. I hold his hand, she said, and tell him he's safe now. Something in the room cracked. Not bone, not discipline. It was the dam that keeps a man's eyes dry long after they should have flooded. Jack looked down hard. Marcus blinked up like the ceiling had answers. Dale cleared his throat with an apology in it. You're a good kid, Ryder said. Your old man's lucky. I'm lucky, she said, and the words lit the space better than kerosene. Outside, the rain slackened from roar to whisper. Inside, a different kind of weather changed. Ethan woke in the chair, spine complaining. The barrel fire was a red-eyed beast settling into sleep. For a heartbeat, panic spiked. Empty benches, cold metal, the holy silence of a place after it's been stripped. He stood too fast, dizziness pushing darkness across his vision. He caught the door frame, yanked it open. They were still there. Not inside, in the street. 15 vests, 15 pairs of work-scarred hands, clearing limbs, untangling lines, righting trash cans. The town was abruised, and they were thumbs smoothing the ache. Ryder trudged toward him, boots slick with puddle. Morning, he said. What are you doing? Paying for the fear, Ryder said plainly. We'll put it right before we roll. Doors cracked open. Faces peered. Sheriff Brennan parked and wordlessly shouldered a shovel. The day bent itself around the work. Old Walter Harrison, night before he was all shotgun and window slat, came out holding his back like a relic and said, Need an extra pair of hands? Ryder looked at him. Always, it spread like a good contagion. Mrs. Patterson fetched coffee and apologies. Teenagers hauled branches in stealthily competitive sprints. Someone brought donuts and the law didn't ask where they came from after hours. A current of something clean ran under the surface fear and remade it. By noon, Main Street had a face again. By evening, Redstone had a new mirror. It happened at dusk. The sky went soft and bruised, a wound healing. Walter Harrison stood on the town hall steps with a photograph in his shaking hand. Stop. His voice carried like an old church bell. Ryder turned. Helmand Province, Walter said, blue eyes suddenly young with shock. June 2008, my grandson's convoy. IED took the road to pieces. He said an RSGT went back 3 times. Walter's finger trembled toward Ryder, brought out 12 men breathing. He sent me your picture. Ryder's mouth found the tight line hardened men wear when the past makes itself a guest. I'm no hero, he said. "You gave me 2 more years with my boy," Walter said. "I call that miracle enough." The old man's arms went around the biker. Ryder stood wooden for a breath, then folded down and met the embrace as if it were a language he'd nearly forgotten. Someone clapped, then 4 someones, then a town. Mrs. Patterson stepped up, mascara brave in the humidity of tears. "We judged your patches and ignored your scars," she said. "I'm sorry." The crowd murmured it into one word and let the word stand for a lot of smaller ones they didn't yet know how to say. By morning, Redstone made a long table from sawhorses and checked cloths. Pancakes stacked, bacon curled, eggs steamed. People sat without sides. Bikers beside bankers, veterans beside kids who wore their hair like declarations instead of decisions. What mattered was the way everybody leaned in to hear. Marcus talked about 3 children in Arizona and the exact way their laughter used to break him and fix him at once. Jack explained phantom limb pain to a kid with a skateboard who nodded like the world had just confessed something. Dale described doing laundry at 2 a.m. because the machines were the only thing louder than his thoughts. Walter cleared a throat made of bark and rope. "Yesterday I was ready to run these men out," he admitted, irony softening the bones of his jaw. "But they stayed. They helped. They asked for nothing. That's character." He pulled a bill from his wallet, set it down. "For the trouble we caused. For the heat we stole with our fear." Others followed. A mound of crumpled thanks rose, 20s, 50s, patience folded in half. Ryder stared at it, then pushed it across to Ethan. "Heater," he said. "Rent, food for your girl," Ethan recoiled. "No, you earned—" Ryder met his eyes. "You gave us something we haven't held in years. Respect. Let us give back without fighting us for it." Ethan's throat tightened. Lily slid her hand into his. The heat in his palm was older than fire. Sheriff Brennan had a surprise of his own. A hand-carved sign unveiled from the trunk like contraband kindness. "Redstone welcomes veterans. Thank you for your service." It was not poetry, but it was policy stamped into wood. The crowd cheered. Ryder looked away fast, and everyone pretended not to notice the wet at the corners of his hard eyes. When the bikes lined up that evening, chrome rinsed in the last light, engines throbbing like the town's new heartbeat, Lily stepped forward in her big jacket and offered Ryder a red bandana. It was tied with a 9-year-old's deliberation. "My mom gave me this to keep me safe," she said. "I want you to have it." Ryder shook his head once. "Kid, please," she said. "So you'll come back." His hands were gentle like softness was an old uniform he slid on in private. He tied the bandana around his wrist. "We'll come back," he said. "Might be months, might be more, but we will." Engines rolled. The town waved. Some cried. The Harleys left the valley like thunder, having decided to be a promise instead of a threat. Ethan stood in the copper evening. Lily beside him, bandana's twin, rising on the shop flagpole the next day. Not surrender, but vow. 3 weeks later, when the new heater hummed like a modest miracle, and the pantry shelves looked less like winter, Ethan heard a single Harley climb the road. Ryder parked, the bandana still red as a dare against his wrist. He pulled the dog tag from his vest. It had weight. It had words, owner shared, fear none. "Took me a while to find the sentence," Ryder said. "But that's what you taught me. Honor's not a thing you carry alone." Ethan closed his fist around it and felt the metal become part of the old one's gravity. 2 pieces, 2 epochs, 1 spine. They didn't shake hands. They hugged like men who had survived different rooms in the same burning house. "If you ever need—" Ethan began. "You'll hear the bikes," Ryder said. April came in like mercy. The market bell rang on Saturdays. Kids chalked the sidewalks in crooked galaxies. Lily read on the steps in a jacket that declared honorary angel in red thread across her small back. They heard the rumble before they saw the flash. 15 again. Helmets lighter. Shoulders too. The crew looked younger? No, unburdened. Business had picked up at the shop. People trusted the man who had fed devils and discovered they were men. The town hired the crew to patch the community center roof. The high school invited them to talk about service, about the kind of courage that keeps walking after the speech ends. Sheriff Brennan gave each rider a ceremonial key. Symbolic, sure. But symbols are the currency with which a place pays its myths. When they left under a sky as wide as a future, Lily waved until the world made them small again. Ethan felt the dog tag against his sternum and the weight was good. Years rolled. Stories rolled faster. Not in the glittery virals of the web, but the old road of mouths and miles. A sign in Redstone turned into a sign in Dry Creek, then in Willow Flats, then in a town whose map nobody kept up to date. Other vets in other vests found doors open a crack wider. Other fathers lifted their daughters to see better. A ripple became a wave, not of noise, of decency. Lily grew into a mind trained to unspool haunted places. She studied psychology, but she studied faces harder. On lecture stages, in clinics, at group meetings where coffee cooled into confession, she wore the honorary angel jacket. She told a story about a storm that took and then gave. Every 6 months, more often when they could, less when the world insisted, they heard the bikes. The town learned the sound well enough to relax into it. Some winters were mean. Some springs were loud with weddings. The sign weathered and got revarnished. Ethan's hair took the color of smoke. His hand stayed strong enough to lift an engine block and gentle enough to smooth fear from a child's hair in the waiting area. Storms still came. One raked the valley with green lightning and a wind that broke autumn into a million knives. The power flickered and didn't die. New lines braced better, held. When storms remembered how to be storms and towns remembered how to be towns, the math changed. People called it luck. Ethan called it the dividend of a different decision, paid out over time and in smaller, quieter coins. He watched the lights hold and felt, without needing to say it, how many hands had steadied the poles long after the cameras weren't looking. On a summer evening that smelled like cut grass and forgiving, Redstone dedicated a small stone at the square's edge. The inscription was short, honor before fear, for the day we chose the man, not the rumor. For the riders who chose to stay, no one spoke long. The town had learned how to let simple words pull heavy loads. Ryder took the podium last, said into a mic that didn't know how to handle his gravel, "We spent a long time running." Funny thing about running, you move and don't get far. One man opened a door and we remembered how to stop. He lifted his wrist. The bandana was older, so was he. Both were stubbornly red. He looked over at Lily in a jacket that now fit better than it didn't. And a girl taught us that a hand can be small and still save a life. He stepped back. The applause was not thunder. It was rain, steady, soaking, life-giving. When Ethan worked alone at night, the heater a whisper and the clock an old metronome, he sometimes touched the 2 tags and felt the cool truth of metal. Owner shared, fear none. He would smile at the remembered sarcasm of his first sergeant, motivational poster nonsense Cole, and he would hear Ryder's quiet correction. Not alone, Sarge. Shared. War had taught Ethan to fight. Peace taught him to open doors. The second lesson hurt more, cost more, and purchased more of the world worth keeping. If you drove through Redstone in the late blue hour and you slowed, because the town makes you slow, you could see it plain. Patched asphalt that didn't shimmer from neglect, a flag that didn't strain to be believed in, a hand-painted sign at the limit that had started to show up in other places, like it was a species finding habitat again. And if you listened past your engine, you might hear it, a distant roll that could be thunder, or 15 V-twins keeping a promise. Years later, someone asked Lily what changed that night. "Nothing," she said. Then she smiled. "Everything," she told them. A Marine opened a door. That a town learned the shape of its own fear and decided not to be ruled by it. That men who had learned to carry weight found a place to set some down and pick up better loads. She didn't mention the part where her tiny hand resurrected giants. Some truths are too tender to say out loud. When she finished, she straightened the leather jacket on her shoulders. The red thread on her back caught the light. She stepped off the stage and into a lobby where strangers stood waiting with stories in their eyes and hope in their hands. Outside, in the parking lot, a couple of bikes idled like patient animals. Somewhere else entirely, a town she hadn't met yet was nailing a sign into the morning. Honor before fear. The door stays open. If this story hit you in the chest, subscribe to Voices of Darkness, smash that like, and share it with your biker brothers, sisters, and vets who know the weight of a patch and the worth of a hand. Help us cross 1,000 subscribers. If you love the Hells Angels Brotherhood, prove your love. Share this now.